8 months after I walked away from my best friend of 12 years, he showed up at my door with my ex-fiancée standing behind him, her coat open, 7 months pregnant, asking me to hear them out. That's the part I need to tell you about. But you can't understand what happened at that door without knowing everything that came before it. And there's a lot that came before it. So let me back up. I was 32 and working as a structural engineer in Vancouver when my life came apart on a Tuesday afternoon in February. My firm had cleared us out early, a WorkSafe inspection had shut down the site we'd been on since morning, and the project manager sent everyone home just after 2. I texted my fiancée to say I was on my way back. She didn't read it. We'd been together 3 years and engaged for 14 months. We had an offer in on a 2-bedroom in Mount Pleasant, a place we'd spent 6 weeks looking at, dragging ourselves to open houses on rainy weekends, building a shared spreadsheet comparing strata fees and proximity to the SkyTrain. Our mortgage broker had shaken my hand the Friday before and said everything looked good. I had a key, I let myself in. My best friend was in my apartment, in my bedroom, with my fiancée soap, mid-afternoon, not a single ambiguous detail about what I was looking at. I'd known him since we were both 19, first year at UBC, same engineering cohort, 12 years. He'd been a constant through a rough breakup in my mid-20s, through a job I hated for 2 years, through a car accident that kept me off a construction site for 8 weeks. I'd been there for him too. I'd been there financially, specifically, when he needed it. 19 e-transfers over 3 years, $28,000 Canadian, give or take $50. I had every confirmation number, every date, every text message where he'd asked and I'd said yes. I stood in the doorway for 10 seconds. Then I picked up my laptop bag from where it sat beside the entrance, took my keys off the hook, and walked back out. I didn't say a word. I drove to a hotel near Metrotown and checked in using my work card. I stayed 3 nights, ate Thai takeout alone in the room, and watched the ceiling, and tried to understand what I'd actually just seen. On the second day my best friend texted me, not a call, a text. Hey, I know this is terrible and I'm sorry you found out this way. But I need to be honest with you. Your fiancé and I have been seeing each other for 4 months. I think I'm in love with her. I think this has been coming for a while and I didn't know how to tell you. 4 months. I'd been apartment shopping with her for 6 of those months. Our mortgage was approved. My best friend had been at my kitchen table 2 weeks earlier, helping me put together IKEA shelving, eating my food, making me laugh about some contractor he'd had a bad run-in with. 4 months and he'd sat across from me at that table and said nothing. I didn't respond to the text. I called my mother instead. I don't know what I was expecting. Some part of me just needed someone to say, yes, this is exactly as bad as it feels. Instead, my mother said, oh sweetheart, and then paused for a long time and then said, I always thought those two had a kind of connection, honestly. That's not the point. I know it's not. But you and him, you've been friends since you were teenagers. That's not something you just throw away. He spent 4 months sleeping with my fiancée, while I was planning our future. Another pause. Are you sure it's as one-sided as it seems? These things are usually more complicated than. I hung up. My father called 20 minutes later. He used the phrase, these things happen between people. And I let him finish the sentence before I said I had to go and set the phone down. My sister texted, are you okay? Call me. I called her. She listened well for about 5 minutes and then said, honestly I never fully warmed to her. I know that doesn't help right now. But maybe, I don't know, maybe this is the universe doing you a favor. I told her I'd talk to her later and didn't. I stopped reaching out after that. I moved out of the apartment within a week. Pulled back from the Mount Pleasant offer. My realtor was professional and efficient about it. And I was grateful she didn't make me feel worse than I already did. I found a 1-bedroom in East Van, paid first and last in cash, moved in with 2 carloads of my stuff, and left the rest for my ex to sort out. My parents tried a few times over the following weeks. Dinner invitations, Sunday brunch, no agenda, just us. I declined. Then one Sunday I drove over and found my best friend's car in the driveway. I sat in my car for a full minute. Then I put it in reverse and went home. I texted my mother, don't do that again, I'm not ready for this. She called immediately. We just thought if you two could sit down and actually talk. He didn't make a mistake, he made a decision. Every single day for 4 months, he made that decision. You don't mediate that. Family is. He is not my family, and right now I'm not sure you are either. I blocked her number when I got home. My father's, my sister's, my best friend's, my ex's, every mutual contact I could think of. Then I put my phone down and sat in my quiet apartment and stayed there. The first 2 months were the worst, and I won't pretend otherwise. I was functioning, getting to work, making coffee, answering project emails, but Everything had that quality of running slightly behind. I slept badly, ate badly, there'd be moments in the middle of a site visit, standing in a half-built stairwell in a hard hat, where the whole sequence of events would just hit me at once. The look on their faces. That text message. I think I'm in love with her. Around month 3 I started going to a climbing gym near Commercial Drive 4 mornings a week. I signed up for a sea kayaking course out of Granville Island. 8 people, beginner level. Saturday mornings, learning paddle strokes in False Creek while it rained lightly and consistently, which is the Vancouver way. It sounds small. It helped. My hands were occupied. My brain had less room to run in circles. Month 5, I started sleeping again. Month 7, I went to Kelowna on a work trip, and had a genuinely good dinner with a colleague, and laughed at something stupid, and came back feeling like a person. Month 8, the knock on the door. It was a Saturday evening in October. I'd just finished dinner and was settling in to watch the game. The knock was careful, not aggressive. More like someone who'd rehearsed the right level of firmness, so it didn't sound panicked. I looked through the peephole. My best friend was in the hallway, and behind him, hanging back near the elevator, was my ex-fiancée. Her coat was open. She was visibly heavily pregnant. I stood at the door for a moment, then I opened it. I didn't step aside. What do you want? My best friend had lost weight. He looked like someone who hadn't been sleeping, which I noted without any particular feeling about it. She needs to tell you something, he said. We think you should know. My ex stepped forward. She wasn't wearing makeup, and there were dark circles under her eyes, and she had the particular look of someone who's rehearsed a speech so many times they can't remember which version is true anymore. I know you don't want to hear from us, she said. I know, but there's something you need to know, and I didn't have another way to reach you. You knocked on my door. Your number is disconnected. I didn't have another option. You had the option of not coming. She nodded, like she'd been expecting that. Her hand went to her stomach, not for effect, just automatic. I'm about 7 months along. I did the math quietly, and we last about 6 weeks before you found us. So, there's a possibility. That's why I'm here. I'm not trying to cause problems. I just thought you deserved to know. I looked at her for a long moment. Then at my best friend, who was studying the floor. Paternity test, I said. She blinked. Okay. Non-invasive prenatal test. Blood draw, no risk to the baby. Private clinics in Vancouver do for somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000. I'll pay for it. I'd looked this up around month 3, when a quiet voice in the back of my mind told me something like this was eventually coming. People like this always come back, one way or another. I'd been ready. I went inside and got a business card I'd already printed. A private genetic testing clinic, downtown, the address and number. I held it out through the door frame. She took it. Text me when the appointment is set, I said. I'll be there. That's it? My best friend said. That's it. I closed the door. I went back to the couch, picked up the game where I'd left off. My hands were steady. Later that night, I checked my email and found a clinic confirmation. She'd already booked, which meant she'd been researching this before she ever knocked on my door. The email had been sent to me, and in the metadata, visible for about 4 seconds before a recall request pulled it back, there was a CC to a second address. My best friend's email. They'd planned this together. This wasn't her doing the right thing on her own. This was a coordinated move. I didn't confront anyone. I saved the email, screenshotted the metadata, backed everything up to iCloud and my Google Drive. Then I opened a folder on my laptop and started building something. Bank records first. Every e-transfer to my best friend, 19 transactions over 3 years, $28,000 total. Dates, amounts, confirmation numbers. Text messages where he'd asked, always with a reason. Startup costs for the business, a car repair, a gap between contracts. Always a reason, always a promise. I cross-referenced the dates with what I now knew about the affair. He'd asked me for money 3 times while it was happening. February, March, April. I'd sent it. All 3 times I'd sent it. I organized everything chronologically and went to bed just after 2 in the morning. I met them at the clinic the following Wednesday. My ex and I both gave samples, cheek swab for me, blood draw for her. My best friend sat in the waiting room and scrolled his phone. The technician was calm and professional. Results in roughly 10 business days, she said. I drove home and went back to my routine. 12 days later, on a Friday morning at 7:23, an email came from the lab. I was standing in my kitchen making coffee. I opened it on my phone. Probability of paternity 0%. I set the phone down on the counter, stood there, poured my coffee, sat at the kitchen table. I didn't feel the way I'd expected to feel. There was no explosion of emotion, no flood of relief. Just a very clear, very quiet sense of having been right. About all of it. I opened my laptop. I spent 2 hours building a 3-page PDF. Page 1, the DNA results, clinical and clean. Page 2, the financial record, the 19 transactions, dates and amounts, with a single paragraph noting that these loans were made during the period of the undisclosed relationship. Page 3, a brief factual summary of events. What I discovered in February, what happened with my family after, what my ex-fiancée showed up claiming 8 months later, what the test confirmed. No accusations, no adjectives I didn't need, no dramatic flourishes. Just the sequence. I wrote out the recipient list. My parents. My sister. My best friend's parents. I'd known them since I was 20, had spent 2 Christmases at their house in Port Coquitlam. Our mutual friends. The ones who'd been kind to me, who'd offered their sympathies without knowing the full picture. And separately. The HR director at a firm my best friend had been trying to get a contract with, for whom I had verbally agreed to provide a professional reference. I emailed her directly to withdraw it, no further explanation required. I attached the PDF to one email. Subject line for your information. I hit send. Read receipts started coming in within minutes. I watched them appear on my screen. 1, then 3, then 7, then 11. My sister texted first. What is this? Is this real? My mother called. I declined. My father called. Declined. A mutual friend, someone I'd climbed with a handful of times, completely outside the drama, sent a text. I had no idea any of this. Genuinely, don't know what to say. For what it's worth, good for you. I read it and kept it on unread. Another mutual was sending it to everyone really necessary. Blocked. About an hour in, an unknown number called. I let it ring twice, then picked up. It was my best friend's mother. She'd been good to me for 12 years, genuinely warm. The kind of person who remembered what you'd told her 6 months ago and asked about it. She was crying. I just read the email, she said. I didn't know. I knew about her. He told us a few months ago that they'd gotten together, but I didn't know when it started. I didn't know about the money. I know you didn't, I said. He came to us last month. Asked for help with some bills. We told him no. His father and I, we've been worried about him for a while. She stopped herself. I am so sorry, for all of it. You don't owe me an apology for what he did. Someone does, she said quietly. We stayed on the line for another few seconds. And then she said goodbye. My parents knocked on my door that evening. I watched them through the peephole. My mother with her arms crossed. My father with his hands in his coat pockets. Both of them looking older than I remembered. We read it. My father's voice through the door, controlled but not entirely. We need to talk. I leaned against the wall. We didn't handle it right, my mother said. We kept trying to find a way that didn't hurt anyone, and we didn't realize. We weren't thinking about what we were doing to you. You wanted peace, I said through the door. I understand that. But you were buying peace on my credit, and I didn't agree to that. We know that now. You invited him to Sunday brunch and expected me to sit across from him. That wasn't a mistake, that was a choice. A long silence. I'm not angry anymore, I said. And I meant it, not as reassurance, just as a fact. The anger had burned itself out somewhere around month 4. What was left was something quieter. But I'm done. I've been done for a while now. My mother started saying something. My father said her name, gently, and she stopped. They stood out there for another 5 minutes. Then I heard them walk away down the hall. 3 days later, I pulled up an email I'd been ignoring from my firm. Senior structural engineer position in the Calgary office. More responsibility, bigger projects, meaningful pay increase, full relocation package. They'd been trying to fill it for 2 months, and someone had put my name forward. I'd been sitting on it, because I hadn't been ready. I replied, and said I wanted to discuss it further. My manager called the next morning. How soon can you move? Give me 6 weeks, I said. Done. I got a new phone number before I packed a single box. I gave it to 5 people, my firm's HR, my GP at the clinic on Commercial Drive, my bank, my landlord, and one friend. Someone I'd met through the climbing gym who had nothing whatsoever to do with any of this and who had once made me laugh so hard I nearly fell off a bouldering wall. 5 people. That was enough. Packing took 10 days and I was deliberate about it. I didn't keep anything from the apartment that had her touch on it. Shared purchases, gifts, things we'd assembled together on rainy weekends. All of it went to the curb or to the donation bin at the Salvation Army on Hastings. I kept my clothes, my climbing gear, my books, my tools, my laptop. That fit into 2 suitcases and a couple of bags. That was my life. Reduced to what actually mattered. The apartment looked like nobody had ever lived there by the time I was done. So, last night in Vancouver, I ordered pho from the place around the corner that I'd been going to for 2 years. Ate it on the floor with my back against the wall, because I'd already sold the table. Watching a podcast on my laptop because I'd already sold the TV. The empty room had a small echo. I felt lighter, not fixed. That wasn't quite the word yet, but lighter. Like I'd been carrying a weight I'd grown so used to, that I'd stopped noticing how much it was costing me. The drive to Calgary was 10 hours, and I did it in one go, stopping once outside Golden for gas and coffee. I stood in the parking lot for a few minutes looking at the mountains. It was November, the sky was that deep, impossible blue you get at elevation in the Rockies, and the peaks already had snow on them. I stood there long enough that my coffee went cold. Then I got back in the car and kept driving east. Calgary was faster and flatter and colder than Vancouver, and I liked it for different reasons. The office was intense. Larger projects, a team that expected you to carry your weight from day one. The learning curve was steep and I was grateful for it. Steep learning curves leave no room for anything else. I found a one-bedroom condo near the Beltline. Bought second-hand furniture. Discovered a climbing gym on 17th Avenue. And started going 4 mornings a week before work. About 3 months in. A quantity surveyor named Celeste started showing up at the same Friday morning lead climbing sessions. She'd been with the firm for 6 years and was significantly better on the wall than I was, and had absolutely no interest in being polite about it. We started getting coffee after class. She was direct and funny. And she said exactly what she thought, without turning it into a performance, which I found more refreshing than I can adequately explain. By the 4th or 5th coffee she asked, straightforwardly, whether I'd come to Calgary because of an opportunity, or because of something else. Both, I said. You don't have to tell me more than that, she said. I told her more than that anyway. Not everything at once, just the broad shape of it. Caught my fiancé with my closest friend. Family handled it badly. A paternity situation at the end that confirmed everything I'd already decided. She listened. Didn't offer commentary I hadn't asked for. How did the test come out? She asked. Not mine. Good, she said. And then asked what I thought about ice climbing, and whether I'd ever driven up to Banff in January. By the 6-month mark in Calgary, we were together properly. She met a few of my colleagues. I met her sister in Airdrie, who had 2 kids in a loud house, and made me feel welcome in a way that I hadn't expected to feel for a long time. One evening in spring we were lying in bed, and she'd been quiet for a little while, and she asked, "Do you ever regret it? How completely you cut everyone off?" I thought about it honestly. I didn't give her the easy answer. I regret believing their version of loyalty for as long as I did, I said. I kept making excuses because I didn't want to believe what I was seeing. The moment I stopped making excuses, everything got better. That part I don't regret at all. She was quiet for a moment. That's a good answer. She rolled over and went to sleep. I lay there in the dark thinking about my best friend, about my ex, about my parents, wondering vaguely how things had gone, then noticing that I felt almost nothing when I wondered. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even much curiosity. They were somewhere, doing whatever they were doing, and it existed entirely outside my life now. A friend from the old climbing gym back in Vancouver had sent me a message a few months earlier, just checking in. He mentioned in passing that things had gotten complicated for them. The money issues had apparently caused real problems. The relationship was strained. The referral I'd pulled had cost my best friend the contract position he'd been counting on. He wasn't telling me to rub it in. He was just being honest. I read it, replied to the other parts of the message, and left that part alone. It didn't matter. It genuinely, completely didn't matter. The DNA test hadn't just told me the baby wasn't mine. It had confirmed what I'd already known standing in that doorway 8 months earlier. That I'd been right about what these people were capable of. Right about what I deserved. Right to leave when I did. The hardest part wasn't walking away. The hardest part was all the time before it. When I kept finding reasons to stay. I never found a reason again.